The man who failed at 40. At 40 years old, David Miller believed his life was over. Once, people had admired him. He owned a small manufacturing business, employed dozens of workers, and dreamed of building something that would last longer than his lifetime. But success is fragile, and when it falls hard. The market crashed. One bad deal turned into another. Slowly, silently, everything he had built began to collapse. Bills stacked higher than hope. The bank took his factory. His employees left. His partners disappeared. On the final day, David stood outside the locked gate of his old factory, holding a small box of personal items, his last connection to the dream he once lived. The signboard above the gate was dusty and broken, just like his confidence. That night, he returned to his empty apartment. There was no food in the fridge, no messages on his phone, no noise, only the sound of his own failure echoing in the walls. Sitting on the floor, he whispered, "I gave everything and still lost." The next days were worse. Neighbors looked at him with silent judgment. Relatives spoke softly but with sharp words. "Start again at 40? Be realistic. You should accept defeat." Each sentence cut deeper than the last. David began to believe them. Every night, he stood on his balcony and stared down at the city lights, wondering how someone could fall so far. One night, as the darkness felt heavier than ever, his phone rang. It was his mother. Her voice was old and weak but steady. "Son," she said softly, "as long as you are breathing, your story isn't finished." He said nothing. Tears filled his eyes. That night, something changed. At 41, with no money, no business, and no support, David made a decision that terrified him more than failure itself. He would start again. He sold his car. With that money, he bought a secondhand laptop. He moved into a smaller room. At night, while the world slept, he began watching free business and digital marketing lessons online. His hands shook as he typed. His eyes burned from sleepless nights. He failed again and again. Websites crashed. Clients rejected him. Some never replied at all. Weeks passed with no income. Hunger returned. Doubt returned louder than ever. But each morning, David repeated one sentence to himself. "I'm allowed to fail. I'm not allowed to quit." 6 months later, something small happened, something that felt huge. A client paid him $50. It wasn't a fortune. It barely covered his bills. But to David, it meant more than money. It meant proof. Proof that his effort had created something real. From that moment on, he worked harder than ever. No weekends, no vacations, no excuses. While the city slept, he learned. While others rested, he built. While doubt screamed, he kept moving. 2 years passed. Slowly, the work increased. One client turned into 3. 3 turned into 10. His income grew. His confidence returned, not loudly but steadily. At 45, David opened his second company. This time, he did it alone. This time, he did it smarter. This time, he did it without fear. At 50, the same people who once laughed now requested meetings. Banks that had once rejected him now offered loans without hesitation. His company crossed the $1 million mark. But David never celebrated loudly, because he never forgot the balcony. At 53, he visited his mother. He placed the company keys in her shaking hands. "You never let me quit," he said. Her eyes filled with tears. She touched his face and replied, "I just reminded you who you were." At 55, David stood on a global business stage in front of thousands of people. A journalist asked him, "Why did your success come so late in life?" David smiled gently and answered, "I didn't succeed late. I refused to quit early." The crowd stood in applause. But the real victory wasn't the money. It wasn't the fame. It was the fact that one broken man at 40 chose to rise instead of surrender. Final message. If you're watching this at 30, at 40, or even at 60, remember this. Failure doesn't destroy dreams. Quitting does. Your comeback may be one decision away. And today is not too late. If you're still watching this video, remember one thing. Life doesn't change in a day, but a single decision can start the change. Maybe today is that day for you. No matter how hard your journey is, don't stop. Because the moment you choose to rise again, your story begins to shine. Thank you for watching. If this message touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share. Your one action might change someone's life. And if you want more inspiring stories like this, subscribe now. Your journey to a better life continues here. See you in the next video.